Hello, hello, friends, and welcome to another action-packed episode of the Nintendo Gems podcast. My name is Connor, and today I am joined by my ever-lovely co-host,
Braydon.
I think we agreed to stop doing that on the last episode, and I think maybe last episode we talked about how we agreed to stop doing that the previous episode.
Yeah, I suspected that you didn't remember, so I was prepared. But, hi, Braydon here.
What's up?
Not much. Here to talk about some Nintendo, and these games have been out for a little while now, same as our Tears of the Kingdom episode. We let that one cook.
Some more than others.
Exactly, but glad to be back.
What do you got for us? Ooh. For us. What's first for us?
Yeah, we're back to our normal trajectory here, where we discuss a Switch game, then an old retro game.
A game for Switch?
A game for
and then a game
Switch?
for something else?
Yes, indeed. We're going to start with Pikmin 4.
Hooray!
You have some beef with this game that I'm looking forward to getting through a little bit. And
I mean, I haven't played it, first of all.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could possibly have beef with a game that I have not played.
Yeah, but you like Pikmin, right?
I love Pikmin.
Well, so there's...
What's the problem, officer?
This game's been out for several months. I believe it came out in July of 2023, and this is now early October 2023. And so, you know, it was one of Nintendo's big launches for the year. And yeah, I played it, and we'll get into it, but rest assured, I will be sure to nitpick that about you, that you haven't played this for some reason.
Well, I have history with Pikmin, as do you. We have comparable histories with the Pikmin series, you know, and I don't know. The Nintendo Directs leading up to the release of the game put me off a little bit. I'll say it. I'm sorry. It's over.
Okay.
I don't like Ochi.
My boy Ochi.
I don't like Ochi.
Uh-huh.
I'll say it again. Maybe if I played the game, I would learn to like Ochi.
Uh-huh.
And I especially don't love talking in Pikmin games like a whole bunch. I don't think it should be in Pikmin games a whole bunch.
Okay.
And what I've heard a lot of is that there is way more talking in this one, and I'm still like, Tears of the Kingdom is still fresh in my mind, you know.
Yeah.
That was a talky game, and I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. And we'll revisit some of it.
Okay.
But yeah, like you said, we're pretty big fans of Pikmin. We've played all of the entries. I didn't play 3 until it was re-released for the Switch, but I was very eager for 4. And it started out a little rough for me, I'm not gonna lie. I was worried when I first booted it up.
Pikmin 4?
Pikmin 4, yeah. Pikmin 3 kind of ranks as, like, the lowest of the 3 games in my perspective.
Wow.
We can break that down if you want, but and 4 opened up quite similarly. You're not Captain Olimar, you know, you're these random space cadets. You're actually the rescue team who is sent to rescue Olimar from, surprise, a crash landed planet, and it opens up in like this hub world type thing where there's a bunch of different characters. I was a little concerned because you can't quite tell how big this hub world is going to be. And it, like you said, Ochi's there. It feels like a bunch of weird new mechanics are being thrown at you all at once. But
even in like the tutorial of the game?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. It's all pretty right off the bat. The game actually opens with a tutorial playing as Olimar, and you have a dog equivalent of Ochi, and so it tries to kind of show you the ropes. And then it shows that Olimar is like in peril, and the rescue squad, I can't remember what they're called, but your team is sent to the planet to rescue Olimar.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional Pikmin fare, you know, from that perspective.
Pikmin 3 was a departure in its own right, because it had, instead of kind of one main character essentially split into 2 with Olimar and Louie, it had like a kind of diverse cast of 3 characters.
Right.
3 main characters, and they were all like constantly playable.
Mm-hmm.
But Pikmin 4 seems to play with that structure in a different way. Is there like a main...
Yeah,
squad? Are there like...
Yeah, you actually design your playable character. Like, there's like a small quick, like not many options, but character creator. And then you do have like this core team from your emergency rescue team are like fixed characters, and they're not playable or anything, but you know, there's the ranger and there's the medic and there's the pilot, and so like, you know, they all have their roles and personalities.
Do they in the gameplay?
Not in the gameplay, no.
Okay. Maybe I heard that the wrong way and got ahead of us a little bit.
Maybe. It's kind of layer upon layer of almost Pikmin tropes, but
right, it's my thing about Pikmin and Pikmin 4 is like Pikmin is such an old series, but there's only now 5 games. There was Hey Pikmin, you know, that weird one on the 3DS. That was a game.
Yep. With a gorgeous amiibo.
Yeah, of course. The Pikmin tropes is such a shallow pool to draw from.
Right.
You know, there's only 3 real Pikmin games.
Yeah.
And so, you know, tropes, I feel like it's more like just series conventions at this point. You know, there's only so much frame of reference.
Sure. Well, and so I guess to explain what I mean by this trope that we're getting at. So Olimar actually didn't crash land. He has gone missing on the planet, but then your rescue team crash lands trying to get in to rescue Olimar.
Okay.
So your squad is scattered. You are alone essentially, and so the whole point of the game is to reassemble your rescue squad so that you can then find Olimar. And so as you find them, they offer you different benefits in this hub world. One of them it's like you're paying for character upgrades and like items. And so like bomb rocks, there's ice bombs, you know, different things like almost weaponry, as well as movement speed, Pikmin pull time,
stat
upgrades essentially. Yeah, and so one of them will upgrade Ochi's abilities. It's an interesting array of characters and how they put them in this hub world. That was the first jarring thing, right? Just
and is
a lot of characters, like you said, a lot of talking,
and that's all thrown at you kind of at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is what deters me from playing it.
There's like a steep 2-hour learning curve. You know what I mean? Just where you're kind of like, am I doing things right?
Learning what? Is it still Pikmin?
Oh, it's so Pikmin though. Like,
okay.
Let me get there. Let me get there.
We'll keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Because the game is gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. The game is great. I can't say...
That I can't agree with.
Yeah. I can't say the music is quite as iconic.
That's unfortunate.
But I mean, like, it's hard to beat, like, Pikmin 1.
Yeah.
Iconic music, you know, just the ambient nature of the whole soundtrack.
It feels like cheating to allude to a pre-recording conversation. But we were talking about Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which is right around the corner as of time of this recording. And I don't know. Maybe it's like a direction of like the way that Nintendo is taking the Pikmin franchise from here, as opposed, like I think it's a different artistic direction that Pikmin 1 was taking.
Yeah.
Than it seems
certainly.
like Pikmin 4 is taking. I believe that it's Pikmin as heck. But tell me more about how, or go through what's new, whichever.
Well, before we knew much about Pikmin 4, and maybe even like talking about Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I've always said, I want all the Pikmin in one game. And I think it can work. And you're like, but there's like a balance that needs to be struck, you know, whether it be like a power balance or just like simply for puzzle solving, you know, like
you turn it all into stats.
Yeah.
Is that
no?
Is that not okay?
No. See, that's
what's this? How do you do it?
They structure it really well. You can actually only have 3 different types of Pikmin out in the field with you at any time, but all the Pikmin are here.
Right.
Plus 2 new types.
Yeah,
they're all here. And so it satisfied me. Some of them are harder to get in the initial stages, like the white and purple. They can only be found underground for a while.
Okay.
But then all the Pikmin colors have onions in the end.
Okay.
Really, as a veteran Pikmin player, it's really scratching an itch that I've been wanting for a long time. I want armies of whatever Pikmin I want. Don't make some of them harder to acquire. Don't make some of them, like, more obscure. But they give ample amount of puzzle solving to each of the unique styles of Pikmin and what they're capable of. So there's fire puzzles, there's a good amount of swimming involved. You'll need the yellow, particularly for electricity, but some are, they fly higher, so...
Do you decide what Pikmin you're bringing with you for, like, a mission? Or to, like, just go to a level?
No. Once you start a level, the onion lands with your ship, and from there you can withdraw
whatever Pokemon, Pikmin, whatever Pikmins that you want.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to go through them,
up to how many?
100. It's still 100.
That's so interesting. It makes me think that they would up the number.
Right.
We talked about this sort of, but you can only bring 3 types with you.
Yes.
Okay.
And so to go through them, there's red, yellow, blue.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
Yep. White and purple.
Less classic, but classic nonetheless.
Yes. Stone and...
rock.
Yeah, rock.
Forgive
me. And flying.
They're all right. They can hang.
Yep. And then newly added are...
Ochi-min.
Nope. Ice.
Ice. I can chill with it.
Ice and glow.
Okay.
So.
How are the glow men?
I'm counting on my hands here. That means there are now 10, which seems somehow incorrect. But
what do you mean?
I don't know. Is that math? That's 9. That's why I was concerned. Yes, because I don't know how I ended up with 10 fingers up.
What's that weird Olimar looking one?
The bushy-headed dude?
Yeah, right? There's like a weird Pikmin that looks like an Olimar.
I don't...
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I think you might be thinking of one of the kind of main enemies of the game. Basically, like, people who have crash landed on this planet are turning into like these bush creatures. They look more like the astronauts than Pikmin, but they are bushy. They're leafy. They're plant-like, and so I wonder if that's what you're talking about. Maybe.
I don't know.
So just to kind of get rid of some of your concerns regarding the whole balance of gameplay and having all these different Pikmin. So yes, having 3 types inherently 3 types out on the field, that is, inherently reduces the unbalance. But it's really cool. The ice Pikmin are a great addition. If you throw enough of them in a body of water, they can freeze it. So then you can walk over said body of water. So you can either choose a bunch of blue Pikmin and go to the other side to carry something through water, or you can use ice Pikmin and then take your purple Pikmin across to lift the heavy object. Flying Pikmin can also reach the high places that yellow Pikmin could often reach. Mm-hmm. It gives you a variety of problem-solving tools that feel slightly interchangeable, but also like you're getting to implement your own strategy at the same time.
And what of Ochi?
Ochi is perhaps the biggest variable here. And he basically acts as a large Pikmin. He has a variety of functions. You can ride him.
For those listening at home, I don't think we've said it. Yeah. I don't think it's been said out loud here now yet. Ochi is a dog. They put a dog in Pikmin.
A large dog.
The astronauts have a dog.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dog character.
Yes.
His name is Ochi. And
he does stuff. It's not a character that hangs out at the hub world. He follows you around the mission levels and has a purpose.
That's cool.
Has
good for him.
Core functions.
Good for him.
The most basic being, you can ride him, you and your Pikmin. They'll kind of hang on his back, and Ochi can swim them across water. He's a little bit faster than your character.
He's like a vehicle. He's just like a vehicle for you and your Pikmin, more or less.
You can use him to attack, and he doesn't do a whole lot of damage initially, but you can ram him into an enemy, and then all your Pikmin will jump onto the enemy and start attacking from there, which is a great feature. He's able to carry things back to either your ship or an onion. So if a certain treasure calls for 50 Pikmin needed to lift it up, he can contribute 10. or if you've upgraded him.
He's a big Pikmin.
Yeah.
A vehicle and a Pikmin.
Yes. And so really he's just like this
V-pickle.
V-pickle. Really he's just like this multi-tool that at first I did not like either, but he feels like a really good way to address some like pretty standard.
It's like a somewhat elegant solution to like modernizing some parts of Pikmin.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't like that they made it a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that they gave Olimar a dog in this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, it's fine, but I do appreciate the function of it. I do. I like that it makes terrain easier to get across. I mean, less of a headache, at least, while not eliminating the puzzle solving, combat utility, like streamlining it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I can respect the hustle.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to totally justify his existence, because from a distance, without having played the game, without having experienced like just how kind of organic it really does feel in the context of the game, he is helpful and it doesn't feel invasive. It doesn't feel like overpowering either. You know, he is not cheating to use Ochi.
Right.
He is. You are expected to use him, and he makes the game more fun.
And the quote-unquote core Pikmin experience is still there.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So there are underground puzzles, similar to, I guess, Pikmin 2.
Yeah, what is, like, the game structure? Like, what is, like, it's not, like, open world, is it?
No, it's not. From the hub world, you choose a level, essentially, like you would any other Pikmin game. There's a day cycle, so you have 20 minutes or 30 minutes, however long an in-game day takes, from sunrise to sunset, and you try and collect as much treasure as you can so that you can power up your ship and find your crewmates to then rescue Olimar. Is the typical routine of the game.
But you can play at night.
You can play at night, which
a series first.
Yes.
That's the scale that the Pikmin franchise is on. Is like, after 20 years in a series first, you can finally play the game at night.
But
in Pikmin 4.
And again, it actually feels better than it's gonna sound, I think. But it's not like you're playing these whole levels at night.
Right. I like that. For the record,
do you know it's like a mini game almost?
No, I don't like that as much as what I thought. What is it? What's being at night?
It's basically tower defense kind of thing. It's like a what was it in Gears of War where
like a horde mode?
Kind of.
Yeah, firefight Halo.
Yeah. You have these two. Shit. No, it's gonna make it sound dorky and lame, but it's fun. Alright, so glow Pikmin.
Oh, yeah.
Glow Pikmin are the 9th Pikmin. They're like ghost, they're green little ghost Pikmin.
Mm-hmm.
And they only come out at night. And they produce the medicine for the leafy, bushy crewmates. For your anybody that you find that is plant-like and has the bushy head.
Yes.
You need glow Pikmin medicine to cure them.
Right. So naturally.
Yes, naturally. So you go out at night, and all the big monster enemies are trying to destroy the glow Pikmin's bases. And so you have to either make it until daylight or kill all of the enemies so that you can access the glow Pikmin's medicine. And that's long story short. That's like, you survive 10 minutes, you eliminate all the enemies, and the glow Pikmin are like, thank you, here's a glob of jelly that you take back to cure your crewmates with.
And you build your crew.
You build your crew.
What does that... Is that the objective of the game? Is there like a threshold you meet of like a certain number of crew members rescued or something.
That's the crazy part. No,
that's the crazy
I'm
part.
taking that back. I don't like how that sounded. That's interesting because after an area or two, you do start learning it's not just your crew that are missing. Like, as soon as they heard that there was treasure to be found on this planet from Olimar, random people started coming. Like, TV celebrities, there's like an influencer, there's a classroom of students that came to like check out the planet, and everybody's like crash landed. Some of them have been infected by this bushy disease, and some of them are just fine. But there's like citizens from around the galaxy that are also you recover on this planet. And
okay.
so the threshold of recovery, like to forward the main storyline, you need to find your crew.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you build like a little community with all your folks?
Exactly. And so that's kind of where the hub world comes back in. Everyone that you rescue starts appearing in your hub world. Some of them have objectives for you. Like the botanist is like, for every 100 Pikmin you meet, I'll give you like some resources so that you can go buy more items or upgrade Ochi, whatever. And then the treasure collector, he's like, all right, oh, so you found like 25 new pieces of treasure? Like, here's some resources for this, like. But the hub world never really advances past just a bunch of people standing around.
Is it cute?
It's not particularly cute. Like, it's...
Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, I think I said in the start, like, the hub world was a little off-putting, and it stayed that way. Maybe I didn't, but...
You might have. I don't remember you saying that, but you might have.
Like, I feel like the whole upgrade screen, overworld, like, it could have been in your spaceship, kind of like a menu, kind of like Pikmin 2.
Well, is it like fun to do? Or is it like worthwhile to do? You have to do it? Do you have to upgrade your stuff?
You don't have... I don't believe you actually have to upgrade anything. And like the game, the more citizens you rescue, the wider the space gets, the hub world.
It grows.
But I mean, it's not very big from the start. Like, I don't know, it's a missed opportunity in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, there could have been a few extra features added in there.
How many missions are there?
I think there were like 7 different areas to explore. All pretty varietous. Like, they feel fun. There's the first, like, indoor environment, actually. You're in a house, which is pretty cool. And it feels like amazing that it took this long to do that.
I feel like there was something like that in like Pikmin 3 and one of like the bonus missions or something.
But wasn't it like a backyard or something? Like,
I don't know.
You're actually inside
Maybe
a living room in this one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like Chibi Robo style.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was neat. I don't know, man. It's a Pikmin game. If you've played Pikmin before, you know how it works.
But it just you described so many things, so many like the resources. And you got to trade your stuff for stuff. And is it called resources?
They're not crystals, but there's something akin to like crystals.
Refined zonite.
Yeah.
Or
you use this resource to pay for your upgrades, but the Pikmin can also use them on missions to like build things. So you kind of need to prioritize how you want to use this resource. And crystals is probably like the best term to call them.
Sure.
But
pick crystals.
I'm kind of bummed because I don't think I've done a good job of like making it sound fun. And also we haven't even talked much about like what the gameplay is, but
I mean, my understanding was that we had like sort of a primer on the Pikmin series already, having covered 1 and 3 Deluxe.
Yes.
We don't have to. We can baby the listener into knowing what Pikmin even is, but it's a little late in the episode for that, isn't it?
It is, and I also there's not a whole lot new. They just made a lot of it feel more full. They really did expand on the limits of what a traditional Pikmin game has been. I think a lot of that can be attributed to having all 9 Pikmin types available, minus the glow. I didn't mention you can only use them at night or in caves. They don't like the sunlight. And so
Okay. Are
And
caves like a significant environment?
the subterranean caves, the subterranean areas, essentially. There's quite a number of them. They're all multi-level, and that's where the deepest puzzles really come in. There's a lot of...
No pun intended.
Yeah, nice. That's where a lot of the because you can only take 3 Pikmin down there. You can't reload your army if you lose Pikmin, and so it does give you recommended Pikmin types before you start a subterranean level. And so it's like, you're probably going to want some red, some flying, and some purple, and you don't know why, but once you get down there, there's going to be some high up stuff, or some really heavy stuff, fire enemies.
Interesting. If there were anything about it in particular, you being a series veteran as well.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a series veteran. I've played them all, but it feels like it almost doesn't count or something. But just sell me on it. What would I like about it?
It's just plain fun. It feels like the best of Pikmin. I don't know if it's the best Pikmin game, but all of the best elements I feel like they've managed to extract. I've heard more hardcore Nintendo fanboys than us be like, Pikmin 4 is going to win Game of the Year. And I'm like, you're kind of delusional.
They said that about Splatoon 3 too, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet they're going to say it about Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
It's not that vast, but but it is fun. It is engaging. It does make you think, and some of the subterranean puzzles really take a little bit of creativity. You have to use multiple Pikmin in conjunction to their strengths in order to capture a treasure or defeat a boss. It can be challenging. And then there's this whole philosophy thing called Dandori, which I still haven't been able to figure out if that was like a Japanese philosophy ahead of time, or if they made this up for Pikmin. But Dandori is essentially order of operations. Make sure that you've planned your day and everything you need to accomplish accordingly and in the most efficient way possible.
And that's like, Dandori is like the name of that philosophy.
In Pikmin 4.
And yes. That is found in Pikmin 4.
Yes.
In the story? Like throughout, like as a theme?
It is as a theme.
Okay.
Anytime... Do you remember the Pikmin 2 multiplayer battles?
Yes. This has Dandori battles.
It does, but it's basically identical to that.
Okay.
So you're in this arena, and, there's treasure and a handful of enemies, and you're sending your horde of Pikmin out to collect the most treasure, defeat the most enemies, earn the most points.
And whoever loses just has no grasp on their life because they're Dandori. They don't have Dandori.
Exactly. They need
to reprioritize everything.
Exactly.
Something's
right.
wrong.
Yep. There's no flow to their life. There's no
less
intention.
Or they are simply not as flowy or intentional as the winner.
Right. But all the grassy... Anytime you fight one of the grassy astronauts, the plant...
The Grassronauts.
Yes. Jeez, you're on fire.
Sorry.
Any of the encounters with them result in a Dandori battle. And again, sometimes it's really difficult. They've balanced it well. All of the Pikmin feel like they have a purpose at some point. And I don't know. Maybe it was time for Pikmin to go open world or something. It still feels like a small game compared to Tears of the Kingdom, which came out a couple months before it. Or, it's a smaller Nintendo production. But it's tight and it's clean.
All of the new elements make it sound too big, which is interesting.
And again, that was the first 2 hours of my gameplay, and probably a lot of people's is like, this feels like it's going to be huge, and then eventually it scopes back down, and you're like, okay, this is all digestible. I do actually understand what is going on, sure. And I feel in control again.
That's so interesting. I'll try it someday. I have to. It's a new Pikmin game. It's just I've just been up to more important things. Yeah. Maybe. Personally. Other more important things. What else do you have to say about Pikmin 4?
The last weird tidbit before we move on is that there's currently an argument going on the internet about whether it has retconned the rest of the Pikmin series.
I did think of this earlier and meant to ask about it. Yeah, go on.
It's almost impossible to determine based on, like, Olimar has these, like, logs that you can pick up, you know, based on his adventures through the planet. All the treasure descriptions often feel related to previous games' treasure descriptions. But based on the story alone, there's no way to determine where this actually fits in the timeline. And the most common theory is that this is just a total rewrite.
Yeah.
My favorite theory is that it's based on the bad ending of Pikmin 1.
Oh.
And I don't think Nintendo is taking it that seriously at all. They're not making a split timeline for Pikmin or anything.
Not anytime soon. No. They've learned from that with Zelda.
Yeah. Well, and the game as a whole doesn't require that. Like, the story is not the point of any Pikmin game. And that's partially why I didn't like 3. The story is still my least favorite part of 4. You know, I don't need all these characters. I don't need... The hub world is cute. It is also underwhelming. But, like, I don't need to talk to all these people. Let me play Pikmin. You know? Mm-hmm. And so, that's not the point of the whole...
Your Dandori's out of order. If the plot is the point of Pikmin for you.
Yes. But it is interesting just that the story references Olimar coming to this planet and doing totally different things than we've ever seen him do before. And then
the most prevalent one that I've heard is that it's like generally a reboot of Pikmin.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, why is it called Pikmin 4?
Yeah.
Why call it that?
I had that thought somewhere while I was playing it. I was like, they could have called this something different. They could have realigned this. This could be not Pikmin World, you know what I mean? It's not it's not big enough.
That'd be cute.
But
Pikmin Bros 3.
Yeah.
Pikmin Land. Pikmin Country.
Pikmin Wonder.
They wish.
But yeah, that's my last tidbit of information, is just that this is a weird entry in that regard that, I mean, I think the first 3 kind of just tailed each other back to back to back. And now this one, it confused me at first. When I started that tutorial as Olimar and he's discovering the Pikmin for the first time, I'm like, what? You know, you don't know these guys? But different things are happening than in Pikmin 1. And so, it was jarring.
That is interesting. And jarring. I didn't know. I don't think you said that earlier. I don't think you said that Olimar was like meeting the Pikmin for the first time.
I don't think I mentioned it earlier either, but that is the case, and it becomes less important, you know, as you understand that this is essentially a reboot or dare whatever. I say alternate time, you know, whatever. Who cares? That's all I got for Pikmin 4.
That's all you got?
I think Hey,
do you recommend it? Do you like it?
Yeah, go fucking play it. Cause, I hate. I don't know. We've been discussing it for a minute now, and I don't feel like I've done it justice.
Well, answer this: is this where people should start with Pikmin?
I think I do think
that's fascinating to me too. I believe you. I don't know. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Even if it's not my thing, even if I play it and like it or play it and don't like it, I think more importantly than me liking it, is that this seems like the new benchmark for it. Everyone that's played it seems to agree.
Yes. And not even in a bad way. If you are a series veteran, I'm not saying you won't enjoy it. I think you very much will. But it's also a great onboarding point. And you know what? I think that's where my thoughts stemmed from, actually. They shouldn't have called it Pikmin 4. More newcomers to the series would have played it or would be willing to try it if it wasn't 4.
Oh man, you know Miyamoto was like hands on the conference room table slammed, and he said, "New Pikmin. We're calling it New Pikmin." But Doug Bowser just was shaking his head.
No.
And he said, "It'll never fly. Not in my country." Pikmin
Doug
4.
Bowser shaking
Doug-
my fist at him.
I'll get you, Mario.
But
yeah.
alright.
Anything else? Can I talk about my game that I liked?
Yeah, why we're here.
Yet
What you been playing?
I've been playing.
Why weren't you playing Pikmin 4?
I was playing Final Fantasy IV, better known in our territory, possibly, as Final Fantasy II. It is the fourth game in the Final Fantasy series.
Oh, okay.
It was called Final Fantasy II in its original North American release on the Super Nintendo in 1991 because the Final Fantasy series is a Japanese series of video games.
Yes.
A series of video games of probably exclusively Japanese origin. I would bet money on.
Yeah.
And if you know how long Final Fantasy's been around and how many Final Fantasy games, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big bet. Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy came out for the NES in North America as Final Fantasy. Final Fantasies 2 and 3 came out in Japan and not North America. By the time Final Fantasy 4 rolled around and they decided, hey, let's release one in North America again, it's the fourth one. Let's just forget about it. Let's just put a dash on there. And so it's Final Fantasy 2.
Okay.
And that's what my title screen says while I'm playing it on my original Super Nintendo, on my CRT TV, in my my bedroom. And I've been having it in my rocking chair. And I've just been having the time of my life.
90s style.
1991. That's like
Wow.
not even 90s yet.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Final Fantasy VII is like the 90s Final Fantasy.
You're so hip. You're so cool.
I'm pretty tubular. I am pretty far out. I guess that's 70s.
You've been playing it a long time.
See, you say that. When you think of Japanese RPGs, especially the old school kind, you think of how long they are, how many hours they take, how drawn out some of the encounters are, how much grinding they take sometimes. But my clock on this one said 30 hours.
No way.
30 hours. That's my final save. I did have to grind at the very, very, very tail end, which we'll get to. That's like the only sour spot of my whole 30 hours in there. Was about 2 of those at the very tail end. But beyond that, and beyond those 30 hours, and literally beyond it, with the final encounter and the ending, just a sublime little video game experience, I'd say.
I swear, it feels like, and maybe you have in short bursts, but it feels like you've been playing this for months.
Well, I did take about a month off,
Okay. Okay, so this released on the Super NES, and this is far from the first JRPG released on the console, let alone the standard NES. What does it play like? What can you compare it to? Is it genre defining?
Yes, it is genre defining.
Okay.
By and large. 91 is really early.
Yeah.
It might be the first. It's not the first RPG on the Super Nintendo, but it almost is.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to Final Fantasy VI, which was like I think 95 or 96. I don't know. It's very archaic. It's very old school. Yes, there were 3 Final Fantasy games before this game, but as far as like Final Fantasy, well, I don't know. I was about to say like this is like the real first one, like the defining one, but and while there's truth to that, to making that statement, certainly you had to have like the job system and stuff from Final Fantasy III first for Final Fantasy IV to subvert that system and make it something meaningful,
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel about like Tears of the Kingdom, it's like
you needed some Breath of the Wild in there first.
Yes, and then I needed some Tears of the Kingdom, and then now a third one, a trilogy completer, could really make something pop off. Final Fantasy IV feels like the whatever RPG essence was floating around video game, and let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Role-playing games started with Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
And I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was immediately just like captured. Final Fantasy IV is an old school role-playing game, right?
Right.
It's not only is it old school in video game terms, but it's built, those old school RPGs are built on the framework of Dungeons and Dragons, role-playing, like old school role-playing games, right?
Yeah, that whole the definition of role-playing game has shifted so far.
Yeah, it's true. And so for a role-playing game like Final Fantasy IV is different from Final Fantasy III, because in Final Fantasy III, for the Nintendo, if you're following me, you got to choose. You have a party of 4 characters, and you're playing turn-based combat battles, and then you're running around an overworld and like talking to people, leveling up, RPG stuff. But in Final Fantasy III, you got to choose each of your characters' jobs, their roles essentially. Like, are they a white mage, a black mage, a warrior, a rogue, a ninja? Like what class they are, what they do, their function. And that's kind of how you conquered challenges in that game. That's how the encounters were designed, is that you could kind of adapt your own team or try different builds or things, things like that. Experimentation. While Final Fantasy IV, the one that I played, is fixed. All the characters in the game have fixed roles, fixed jobs. That's the Final Fantasy etymology. That's the term, is job.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that stuck. Like, it sounds pedestrian, but this was kind of the first. It's the first time that like a Japanese RPG kind of like went for it, and went for like a huge scale narrative with like high stakes drama and a cast of characters. Like in Final Fantasy III, you pick your 4 dudes at the beginning. In all the Final Fantasies, I think, prior to 4, you pick your 4 dudes in the beginning, and that's who you roll with through the whole game. That's your party, right?
Sure.
But in Final Fantasy IV, you start with the main character, and then you get your best friend, and then you get your girlfriend. She's the white mage, and then your best friend betrays you, so you lose him.
Yeah.
And then you meet some mage twins. Like, your cast of characters is constantly revolving, as is your party makeup. What roles, what classes you have in your party at any given moment in the story.
Which is story-driven, though.
And it's, yes, and the progression of the game is story-driven. There is a, like, especially for the time, I can only imagine, a wildly impressive open world. The map is really big.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's, like, actually very impressive. And yeah, I mean, it's just like any other RPG, Paper Mario. You got your different towns and your different settlements, and the plot moves along kind of like in chapters. There's no chapter, like, segmentation or bookmarks, but like, I just loved for 28 hours before the grinding. It was more like 25 hours. I spent a lot of time grinding there at the end, and again, we'll get to that. But, it was between save points in the game. It was just like I clock in, I get my little episode of Final Fantasy IV. I go through a dungeon, I fight a boss, I get like a cutscene, and then I get like carried to my next destination, and there's a whole new town, and then I go turn it off and I go to bed. Right. And that's my episode. That's my TV for the night.
Yeah.
It really still feels revolutionary for video game storytelling on some level. It's not sophisticated whatsoever. It's very archaic and rudimentary. Like the blue text boxes.
Like the story beats, or how it delivers it?
How it delivers it. The storytelling.
Okay.
The story is... the story we will talk about. We can talk about.
Okay.
Because it's Final Fantasy. And story, the story is just bonkers. It's just nuts. It's just...
It does whatever it wants, yeah.
But it's also really good. It's really good. But how it tells it is archaically. It's pedestrian to us because we grew up with, like, I don't know, Pokemon on the Game Boy Color, like, and Link's Awakening. There's storytelling in that via 2-line text boxes and characters that move 4 directions on an overworld map. But they're really expressive in Final Fantasy IV. and I was just charmed. I was very quickly charmed by the antiquity of Super Nintendo theater.
Ooh,
That's a phrase. That's a phrase that I like thought of very early on. I was like, this is just like, it's worse than TV.
Yeah.
It's not worse than some TV that I've watched recently.
Uh-huh.
It's better than a lot of TV, frankly. I don't know. It's just interesting. It's cool. The characters are well defined. They have distinct personalities.
Mhm.
The obviously like logically genius endpoint is that their characters' personalities tie into the jobs they have.
Yeah.
Obviously. So, one of the main spoilers for, a 30-plus-year-old video game, but one of the main character changes job classes as a plot point.
Ooh, cool.
He changes from Dark Knight and that's what the story's about, is like redemption.
Okay.
He starts as a Dark Knight and becomes a paladin.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
So storytelling, it's blue text boxes, it's Super Nintendo graphics, 16-bit pixel stuff, but it's effective enough. And something else that's cool that happens is the scripted battles. It's using its own... You can tell that it's the first time, maybe ever, that they're using characters entering a battle with each other as like a storytelling device.
Interesting.
Because there's like dialogue in the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you get a boss down to like half health or something like that, and then your ally comes to your rescue.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you think you're facing a conventional boss fight, but it like one shots you, out of nowhere, and then it's like, cool. Now it's plot time.
Yeah.
There's some really cool storytelling stuff. In the extremely, for our time, archaic and limited ways that it could deliver its story, it's firing on all cylinders.
Wow.
It's archaic, but it's still impressive, is ultimately the point. The story itself is effectively told. I like all the characters. They're... in those blue text boxes, you can only fit 3 lines at a time. And so, they fit as much dialogue in there as they can, but it still works. The story concerns Cecil. He is a Dark Knight. He is the leader of an army that is kind of on a conquest. And he's a little conflicted about it because he had to like slaughter a whole village to get their crystal. The village's crystal. And he's moody about it. And then he finds out that like his boss is evil, and he vows to be a better man, and then he eventually becomes a paladin, and then he talks in ... for the rest of the game.
Okay.
They're well-defined characters. I'm hyperbolizing and joking a little bit with that. I don't know, I'm rambling a lot. Do you have any other questions yet?
I mean, how does it look for a Super Nintendo game? Because, I mean, yes, you said 16-bit graphics, but like those can be gorgeous. The leap from NES to Super NES, the graphics are amazing.
It's true.
And so how does it look?
The battles are static. We haven't talked about the battle system yet.
Yeah, no,
we'll get there. The battles are static, but the way the battle system works, there is kind of always action on the screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just, when a character is not taking an action, it's a still sprite of a monster.
They're not even like jogging or like bobbing a little bit?
No.
Okay.
And not even the characters are either. They're static on the other side of the screen until they like move forward to attack or like cast a spell or whatever. But the spell animations are really cool. The sound design is awesome. Yeah. Just through and through. The monster sprites are pretty detailed for the most part, I guess. I mean, it's 91. It's early Super Nintendo, so
yeah,
they did their best. And I've seen some Final Fantasy VI sprite art, and they certainly learned something.
Okay.
Eventually, but yeah, it's all cool. The final boss fight is psychedelic as heck. Especially running on my little CRT TV, it's just like melting my brain.
Yeah.
Firing photons into my eyeballs at like the speed of light times infinity. It was great. I'd do it again. But
good. Okay. It looks good. So
looks good.
Wasn't...
It sounds immaculate. Nobuo Uematsu is like one of the most historied video game composers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say practically second to Koji Kondo.
Yeah.
Potentially. He's been the composer of Final Fantasy since the first one. I think 10 might have been his last mainline entry. Final Fantasy 10.
Yeah.
But, you know, in a way, he's not firing on as many cylinders as he would go on to be in Final Fantasy 6.
Mm-hmm.
But he was firing on more cylinders than he was on Final Fantasy 3.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A new palette of instruments, and you can tell he's just like loving it.
Yeah,
with like, these lush orchestral symphonic scores.
Uh-huh.
You know, here's something that I do think that I purely theorize, I don't know for certain. I theorize started with Final Fantasy IV, the post final battle victory lap, where it shows you all your old places that you like visited.
Yeah, and
it
all
plays,
the characters you've interacted with.
Yeah,
and...
all the characters and how they're living now, and it's playing like songs and motifs from throughout the game, but like arranged and modulated in a way that it's like upbeat and happy, you know? And it's like forever long, but it's great and you love it.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time that might have ever happened.
Oh, really? You think?
That's my theory. I haven't like fact checked this, but I mean, if not, then like I don't know.
It's early days. There had not been the opportunity to create that kind of.
No, and I mean I know I can think of NES games that kind of do it a little bit, but I don't know, not as sophisticatedly. How sophisticated and like just bombastically it takes its victory lap. You know, it's like 12 minutes long.
Oh my god,
it's long.
And the credits aren't even rolling at this point?
The credits roll at the end of it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But it's cool. Let's see. The battle system.
Yeah, tell me about the battle system, because I'm about to do a little research upon the start of this conversation. But I'm curious how it plays, because it's the first for Final Fantasy, right?
Yes. It's I mean, hell, it's arguably like the most important part about the game, is that it is the first Final Fantasy game to implement the active time battle system.
Right.
Turn-based, yes, but with a twist. Every character has a speed stat, and the speed stat, more or less, it might not even be tied to a stat. I never looked at the character's stats hardly at all through the entire game. We can come back to why that is later too, because it is kind of for a reason. But in the active time battle system, it is still turn-based, but every character in play has like this meter that fills at a different rate. It effectively functions as their speed stat,
right?
And like what their turn order is.
I think it's got to be related to the actual speed stat, though, like how fast the bar fills.
It's possible there might be a speed stat. I didn't really look at the stat screen that much. That's kind of on purpose. That is kind of for a reason.
Okay.
But and I do think, I mean, it gets faster as you level up, certainly. Maybe it is a speed stat. But it's just kind of, the enemies have their own bar too.
Yeah.
And the weird, so it creates this like natural pace of combat where you do have to make decisions like on the fly. If you don't make your turn, if you don't take your turn, like enemies will continue to take their turn.
Right.
You know. It adds like sort of an action element to it. And yeah, you can still pause it, which I found was interesting.
Okay.
Even especially for like the Super Nintendo version, as old as it is, you can pause the battle.
Wow.
You can't like look at anything. You can't like, you know, look at your options or anything. But you can take a breather.
Yeah.
It's not like cruel with it.
Which does make sense to me though, because like I imagine for some of the longer haul boss battles, like Final Fantasy and JRPGs in general are known for their massive health pools and just bosses with multiple phases, and if you're needing to pay attention to these bars filling up and timing, you're not timing your attacks, but you want to get your attack off as soon as you can, as soon as that bar's filled, like, you know, that's a lot of attention to rhythm and attention to speed and timing.
Now, you are using all the correct words, because I think to me, like the greatest lesson as far as like game design goes that I've learned from this game, I think, is pacing.
Uh-huh.
I think this game's pacing is pitch perfect, like almost the whole way. Or even if it's not perfect, I learned a lot about how far video games have come in regards to pacing. It's that episode of television thing that I was kind of talking about, like the points at which you're allowed to save and quit. You know, the flow of battle, the flow of battles, how quickly they go or don't, how many battles you encounter, you know, the random encounters on the field.
Yeah.
On floors of a dungeon, how many floors the dungeons have. The pacing is just like always at a clip, always at like an enjoyable clip.
Yeah.
No dungeon is ever too long. No combat encounter is ever really too long. Again, until the end.
Uh-huh.
It's just lopsided, I guess.
Are any of the encounters too short to where they get to be annoying?
Not necessarily. They I don't know if I was just like, if I'd just like bought in so hard to it at that point that I didn't care, but like certainly you do random encounter into like smaller enemies sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the brilliance of the structuring of this game in particular, is that like you aren't going through those old areas very much.
Right.
Very often. You don't have to.
Uh-huh.
It gives you, if you have to go somewhere across the map, it gives you a vehicle. You know, you have the airships and stuff.
Yeah.
Eventually, at certain points in the story, you have access to airships, and like you can bypass certain terrain to get to your next. You know, it's
cool.
It's very elegantly designed. The whole progression
and grand.
Yes, it makes it feel it. Even though it could just be chapter based, like, you know, linear, it makes it feel grand. It's got this whole big open world. I could go back and like go to the starting area and like explore the fauna. You know,
yeah.
I remember what's back there: some goblins and some eye creatures or whatever. But it does help the world building.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's and again, all that combined with the encounter design and the makeup and that. Along that kind of the beauty of the combat is the active time battle system combined with your fixed party at whatever point in the story you are versus the designed encounters around that party.
Yeah.
The beauty of the execution of the game is how well it onboards you, because it starts you off with your main guy, Cecil, the Black Knight, and then you get his best friend, Kane, who's a dragoon. The Black Knight can basically just attack. He just has like the attack command. The dragoon can attack and jump. The jump is a special attack. It costs nothing, but he has to be. It's like Fly from Pokemon. He has to be out for a turn, but it does more damage.
Interesting.
So the first boss fight in the game, like I don't know, half an hour in, is just Cecil and Kane. Cecil fights. Kane jumps. The boss has one attack and also phases out for a turn. He just like disappears. So you learn how to time your attacks, you know, super early on. And same with like whenever it adds a new party member, it'll have like enemies in the given area will be kind of like tuned around you now having the ability to heal with your white mage or something. Maybe they'll be beefy or something.
Yeah.
And it's constantly doing that. You know, your party gets some wacky characters with some crazy abilities sometimes, and you're in crazy situations. I mean, just spoilers to name a few. You go to the moon.
What?
Final Fantasy IV did the underground map thing before Elden Ring.
Okay.
You go into the Tower of Babel. You go into
actual Tower of Babel, like biblical.
It sure is called the Tower of Babel.
Oh my gosh.
You sure do go into a giant robot and work your way to its core and fight the core, you know, to shut it down.
Oh my god.
You do some cool stuff. It's a cool game. It's a really cool game.
They just do it. They do it all.
They do it all. And it starts small, and it starts so small, you know. At the beginning and end of the day, it's a story about humanity. It's about Cecil, you know, redeeming himself. There are other plot elements in there, like the main enemy may or may not have a connection to Cecil. They may or may not actually be children of moon people.
Okay.
They may or may not actually be moon people and not humans. I don't know. It's really tough to say. One last little thing, not last, unless I'm done.
No.
is something I really appreciated in one of... I'm just going to go over a few of the clever encounters that I thought that were cool. There's one cave that you have to go in the story kind of early on where all of your... It has a heavy magnetic field.
Okay.
So you have to take off all of your armor and your weapons.
Wait, seriously?
All of your metal ones. It like different weapons and armor have like different properties, like unseen properties. But you have to take off all that stuff, and you have to fight your way through the cave, and it is kind of grueling, not too grueling.
Yeah. But
it's grueling enough, and then you get to the boss, and you beat him up enough to where he turns like the gravity or the magnetism or whatever back on, and so then you just get to like wail on him.
Yeah.
And that's like the first like dungeon or cave in the game that you don't pretty much get immediately teleported out of.
Oh, okay.
And that's because it's easier coming out.
Right.
So you just like waste through all the enemies on the way back. I thought that was really clever.
That's really neat.
Shoot, what was another one?
How clear is it that you need to take off your metal stuff? Will they just not work when you're in a battle?
You die immediately. You die as soon as you enter a battle in that cave.
Okay, cool.
Something that I thought was really fascinating and made me think about the rest of the Final Fantasy series was at one point in the story, one of your main recurring characters is a summoner. You know, summons are a big thing in Final Fantasy. Characters are always summoning monsters to help them, and some of the monsters are kind of like Shin Megami Tensei that we talked about before, are based on like other mythologies, like real world mythologies.
Yeah.
Hence the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
But there's one point in the story where you go to the village, this like magical village where the summoned monsters live.
Oh.
And they like speak English and are like, "Thank you for summoning us all the time, Rydia." You know?
What the heck,
it's just neat,
dude?
There's just so much neat stuff.
Why did they keep making games after that?
After Final Fantasy IV?
Yeah.
I mean, apparently they get better. Oh, something that was fascinating really early on, the first village, there's a tutorial like room. There's like a schoolhouse. There's a schoolhouse in like the town or whatever. And there's schoolhouses in other towns, and it's it's kind of like a Pokemon Center. It's the same on the inside. It's just tutorial stuff.
Yeah.
But inside, there's like 8 people you talk to, and they're like, weapons do attack. These are your stats. This is what stuff does. You can get over water with a thing or whatever. One of them is, be sure to keep multiple saves just in case.
Are you serious?
Yes. Be sure to save like your progress more than like, I don't know. And I thought that was fishy. I did it. I started saving my file across all 4 files that were available. And one time I did that and 2 of my files were gone. And I don't know why. I really think it might just be in the hardware.
Yeah. And they were aware of that as they were developing it? Like,
I guess so.
Sometimes our shit deletes.
I think so. I think it was just like a safety thing, like a testing, like a player testing thing. It was like sometimes you just lose everything you've done.
Because you were playing on the original hardware, just to be clear. Like,
correct.
You said it earlier, but I just want to reiterate.
And yes, correct. So I don't know why that is, but I thought it was interesting that they called it, and I'm glad they gave me the tip.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say there was some kind of like story beat where, it goes all...
Well, I wish. I mean,
Undertale and starts glitching out or something,
right. I wish it were more interesting than that, but I think it really is just like that fallible of physical media.
Wow, okay.
So this game has plenty of re-releases.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to know if that message even carries over into the other ones.
Right.
I do have some history with this game, I guess, that I haven't really addressed up to this point.
No.
We talked, what do you remember about the DS version?
I know I played 3.
We have 3. We still have 3.
Uh-huh.
There are remakes for the Nintendo DS of Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 4. We own Final Fantasy 3.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Final Fantasy 4 in like 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was in high school, but I tried it and I did not like it.
Was it like the remade graphics with kind of the chibi characters and,
Yeah.
Crystal Chronicles evocative at points?
Totally. That's definitely the vibe. It's the same style as like the Final Fantasy 3 one and the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles,
Ring
of Fate, and Echoes of Time. Those ones were called. Yeah, I guess I'm just doing a loose primer on our exposure to the Final Fantasy series too. Is something we didn't really lead with that we usually do. But yeah, I've played. There's a DS. I played that Final Fantasy IV DS remake, and I did not like it, and I sold it back to GameStop.
Oh wow!
Like
one
I
of
was
the 5 games we've ever traded back in.
We are super stingy about keeping our video games.
Yeah.
As long as we can, and yeah, I just straight up took that one back. I didn't like it. I bounced off of it, and I replaying it now. I remember exactly where I stopped. And to be fair, it was a little boring after that point. It wasn't the most interesting part of the game.
Yeah.
In retrospect, mostly, and like I think with the historical lens, playing it on the original hardware does really earnestly help you paint that picture.
Yeah.
Most contemporarily, there's this series of Final Fantasy Pixel remasters.
Yeah, like collections.
Yeah, on Steam, on the Switch collection, that are modern-ish, remake-ish. They're kind of just like remaster, I guess. Pixel remaster is where it gets weird because it's not all pixelated.
Yeah.
It's not all, one-to-one, whatever. It's widescreen. And I've heard really good things about them. I've heard that all of them are pretty solid for what they are.
Good ways to play.
Yeah. I've watched some video of like some of the encounters of Final Fantasy IV, and it looks too different for me already. Like I'm like already like too possessive of my own experience with the game,
Yeah.
Like anything that looks different isn't like good enough. But I mean, it sort of explains why I bounced off of the DS one, because that one's really ugly. That one's actually really ugly.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about like that art style, like the old like low poly model, like almost PS1 sort of looking low fidelity 3D, but that game was not pretty looking.
Nah.
The pixel art is awesome in the Super Nintendo version.
I also just think, minus Pokemon, we grew into RPGs. I don't think, and maybe I'm speaking for myself. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
but
you grew quicker.
Maybe.
I'd say.
I think I got into them, a little before you. But just anything resembling turn-based, I don't think we gravitated to as kids. And, we learned to appreciate them, just that style of gameplay.
I would agree with, I feel like you were more about the monster collecting, though.
Yeah.
And that just kind of happened to mostly be turn-based stuff, maybe incidentally.
Yes. Like I played Dragon Warrior Monsters.
Right, that's mostly
Pokemon.
What I'm thinking of.
But again, a lot about that was the collectability aspect.
It's we've brushed shoulders with a lot of Japanese RPGs and turn-based. I keep saying turn-based. Turn-based RPGs. Like, we've sung Paper Mario's phrases. Obviously,
yeah, very true.
That's a little different.
Yeah.
You like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance? And tactics games in general. I feel like
I've always loved tactical RPGs.
I guess, most of these have been mostly in our young adulthood rather than adolescence. But I don't know. In retrospect, like, still, Final Fantasy IV on the Super Nintendo feels like a revelation. It feels like a revelation and a revolution. It's all, it's everything. It's the moment.
Yeah.
It's her. That's her. That's that girl. Final Fantasy IV on the DS kind of just feels like a muddy, like, memory.
Yeah. Well, so that's her. Final Fantasy IV is that girl.
Absolutely.
What I have been trying to research to try and poke holes in your good time balloon.
Try as you might.
Yeah. How much of this is really for the first time? How much of this is groundbreaking stuff? So when you said this was, when we were talking like weeks ago, months ago, when you first started, and you're like, when you said this is like an active time battle system, I was like, oh, I've played one of those, and I think I know who started it. Chrono Trigger. And I'm like, so who is more special? Who's like starting some of this? And my research has concluded that Final Fantasy IV
Yeah,
did
baby.
by several years.
Yeah, it did.
And so I'm just curious how many more awards it can take in that regard. You know what I mean? How much of this really is, for the first time ever, Final Fantasy IV has done this thing, and then everyone else is like, wow, that's a good idea. Let's pick off that.
Dude, I think it doesn't get better.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. I think it really feels revelatory. And revolutionary. Like, it feels revelatory in 2023 because it feels like it was a revolution, and I mean, it obviously was in 1991.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd have Earthbound without it. I don't think we would have Elden Ring without it. I don't think.
Well, Earthbound was my other thought. What other heavy-duty RPGs are there? JRPGs in particular, for like the NES and the Super NES.
I mean, and we obviously would not have Final Fantasy VII.
Yes,
100%. Without the steps that 4 took, because 7 uses the active time battle system. Something I neglected to note about the Super Nintendo version of this game: you can't see your meter.
Oh,
which I think is fine.
Wow.
There's a lot of hidden information happening in the Super Nintendo version because they can't. You
said bar.
I said bar because there's a bar in the DS version.
Okay.
And in the Pixel remaster, I think even you can see your bar. You can't see enemy bars, I don't think. But in all subsequent games, like 7, the original version of Final Fantasy VII, you see your bar.
Yeah.
It's just this one, and I think it's fine, and I think it's kind of cooler for.
No, that is cool.
I think it's neat. It's like having health bars in like Monster Hunter. It's like, yeah, it's helpful, thanks, but like, come on.
Yeah.
This is part of the experience. Call me a purist, I don't know. But I don't know, man. I think it really is just like that. It's that girl. I think it did everything mostly first. If it didn't do it first, then like maybe it did it in a previous Final Fantasy game. Yeah. Or it was just like facilitated by old school RPGs, kind of like circling back, bringing it full circle. The storytelling is it also feels like a D&D campaign in a way. The whole thing with like the characters dying and some coming back, and your rotating cast of characters and the high stakes drama,
right?
And there's comedy. There's really good jokes in the game. There's really good jokes.
Interesting.
There's a fake death. Like they fake out a death and it's funny. I don't know. It's just. It's really got the charm down. It knows how to be charming.
Does this experience of playing it make you wish that we've both played different numbers of Final Fantasy games, different spin-offs, and so where has Final Fantasy gone? You are saying that when you were talking about the story of this game, it speaks to my mind of what Final Fantasy is intended to be. Over the top, larger than life, magic and mystery, and yes, entering a giant robot, and also going to the moon, and yes, going underground, and mages and armies, and now, like, Final Fantasy 15 just came out, and I don't know anything about it.
Final Fantasy 16 just came out.
Forgive me.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I promise it's okay.
But, I mean, I know 14 is an MMO, but like the last 6 entries, they look so different. And again, I haven't even played them, but from my understanding is they are a different kind of Final Fantasy. And I wonder if gameplay-wise, maybe there are still jobs, maybe there are still... But it seems like somewhere along the lines, Final Fantasy has shifted.
I think the JRPG DNA has just like completely split off and rippled. If you want more of what Final Fantasy IV is, I don't think I think I've got like Final Fantasy VI and 7, and then they start changing stuff.
Yeah.
I think it'll start really feeling different. But I think, like, I don't know, when it comes to, like, that's a really big question, ultimately.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely correct. Final Fantasy For one thing, each numbered Final Fantasy entry, for those listening at home that might not be familiar, and if you've made it this far, what are you still doing here? Go play this game. But also, how did you make it this far? Every Final Fantasy game is its own independent story. They are not related. They are not sequels to each other.
Yes.
And generally, after about 6, they all start kind of playing different. Actually, more like 9. I don't know.
I think
9's sort of like the action RPG cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
16 is like, I don't know how much like press about it you witnessed, but it's pretty much an action game.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
it's an
my
action
understanding.
Game.
It's
and not only
Devil May Cry, it's God of War, there's
RPG elements at play, and there's like world exploration stuff in there, and like towns and quests and stuff to string it together. But also the setting is really Western fantasy instead of kind of Japanese fantasy or like sci-fi.
Yeah.
Explicitly. But yeah, kind of when you think of that like composite aesthetic of Final Fantasy, 4 is not wholly the crystallization of it, because I think that's kind of where 7 really stole the show. A little further down the line. I don't know. Am I answering the question? That's kind of within the realms of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for a Final Fantasy 4 like experience, I think you just have to kind of like start wading into the sea of Japanese RPGs and decide what you like about the game, and you know, see what else is there. I think Final Fantasy 6 is the next one for me, at least.
Yeah.
But also, I'm now. To answer your question in a different way, I've learned so much about myself and what I can do this past month. I took sailing lessons. I studied a sailing textbook, and I took sailing lessons, and I read a textbook about something that was fun, and it was gratifying and fulfilling and satisfying. And I played a turn-based Japanese RPG, and it was satisfying and fulfilling and gratifying. And now I'm like, what other kinds are there? You know, maybe I can be a JRPG guy. Maybe I can play turn-based games.
Yeah.
As long as they're good.
Right. Dude, I've been playing Ni no Kuni 2 for the last month or so, and at this point, I just don't even want to talk about it on the podcast.
Really?
Like, yeah, especially, like, after this conversation in particular, I've gotten to the point where I don't think it's that good, and out of all the JRPGs I've ever played, it's just kind of
mid.
Yeah, it's missing just a lot of just heart and depth. You know, it's not. It doesn't even. I can't even say it's meant for kids. You know what I mean? It's not even like a watered down, like kid friendly RPG. It's just like weird. It feels cheap. And so I just inserting that in there.
Sure.
But,
well, I mean, some bonus content for the fans.
Yeah.
You don't think we're going to do an episode about it? Do you want to talk about it at any length right here, right now?
I basically did. I'm about to beat it. And I just.
Because you've been playing it for about a month.
Yeah.
At this point, right?
Yes, and I'm on the final chapter of the main game. Apparently there's a lot of DLC to it.
Well, I feel bad that I've been taunting you with my my treasured experience of playing Final Fantasy IV.
Well, the pacing is off. There are a lot of redundant enemy encounters. There's a lot of dumb mechanics that in the end, you know, I was trying to spin them positively in our previous discussions of just, you know, our personal discussions about what we're playing. I'm like, oh, this thing's cool. But no, it's like bad mobile game mechanics. I don't know. It's just, it makes me want to play a good JRPG.
My secret is that I would not recommend the Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster to you, maybe. I don't know. I kind of would even rather they do like the HD 2D thing with these ones.
Yeah.
Just do take it like in like some sort of, I don't know, take a creative risk with it. I would encourage more than like trying to make the original art look newer.
Yeah.
Just doesn't really cut it. Like just like emulate the original or whatever, you know. If it were on the Super Nintendo collection, which it might be. No chance. I would say play it that way, but I hear these pixel remasters are pretty good still.
Mm-hmm. What else you got about it?
Thank you for listening to Braydon's review of Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know, man. I could keep gushing about it, but I think this might be as good a stopping point as any. Are there anything that I'm missing?
Final Fantasy just freaks me out. There's so many of them at this point. The stories vary so much from game to game. They are not interconnected, and some of them are about giant space capitalism, and some of them are about evil trees that are taking over the medieval fantasy world.
That's 5.
Yeah, but
or 9.
They just.
That's the thing, though.
They can go anywhere, and some of them are such garbage, and some of them are just, in this instance, the gold standard.
I have a hard time believing any of them are garbage. This one, just picking one.
I played like 11 or something.
11 was an MMO.
11?
11 was an MMO, I promise.
I played one for the 360, and it was hot
13.
Garbage. That's sure.
With Lightning, the pink hair girl?
That sounds right. She wasn't the main character.
No?
I don't know. I played one for the 360. It was hot garbage.
Okay.
Like, it was linear. I think it was universally hated as well. I'm not alone in this. I think it was a bad Final Fantasy game. But, just the whole series is, like, just so overwhelming to me.
I don't know how to cure you of that.
Me either.
I don't know how to diagnose you. I don't know what to prescribe you. I do know that Final Fantasy IV is very good in my book. I don't know. I simply don't know if I would recommend it to you because I am scared that it's just like too basic.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a really good on-ramp for someone like me. I don't know. I think all the things that like I listed like that are, I don't know, evidently gratifying about it, I do think you would appreciate and respect, but I don't think it would be a waste of your time. But I don't know. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, I don't know what other Final Fantasies are like, exactly either.
Right.
But this gets me more excited about playing more of them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that any of them are like not virtuosic in some way at something.
Yeah.
Except for apparently the original release of Final Fantasy XIV, the other MMO.
Yeah.
That apparently just was sucky mode.
Dude, it is cool how they like incorporated a whole event into revamping the game, though. Do you know about that?
Yeah, Realm Reborn.
Yeah.
Dude, this isn't even why why I'm playing this game, but they just did a Final Fantasy IV themed expansion for 14 because it's the 30th anniversary or something. No, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. 91. It's not even 30th anniversary. I don't know why they're doing it, but they just did it. Well.
Do you feel expunged? Do you feel
exercised?
Yeah,
I suppose. I think so. How about you?
Because this podcast is for us. If
it's true.
If there's a spirit out there listening, bless you. But this is for us to get off our chest what we need to talk about these games we're playing.
It's kind of true.
And so, you feeling good.
Yeah, I feel loose. I feel limber. I feel like I've done it.
Yeah, weight off your shoulders because you've been eager to have been playing this game, eager to finish it, eager to talk about it, and I want to make sure you're feeling good.
And eager to start something new.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of this episode of the Nintengems podcast. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook, I guess.
I don't know.
If you use Facebook, I don't know. Follow us on Twitter.
What's a Twitter?
I don't even know anymore. Like us on...
I think the best thing you can do is follow us on whatever
Spotify.
Podcast platform you're listening to right now.
I agree. I think that is solid advice, and I would ascribe to that myself and subscribe to it myself.
Ooh.
Thank you so much, as always, for listening. My name is Connor.
And I'm Braydon.
And we will rap at you next time.
See ya.
Love you.